guys, in this episode of Zone, I'm going to be talking about my experience replaying Outlast and Outlast Whistleblower, the DLC to Outlast. I finished playing through these two games, the game and the DLC, about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago, and it was great going back to them. It was fun. I loved them just as much as I used to love them before, and I was reminded actually of how fun and entertaining they are, and how much I love the location of the Mount Massive Asylum. It is a really, really great location, and the visuals in this game are great. I hope this actually is able to be seen in the videos, because I'm recording videos ahead of time, so I at this point in time I've still not even edited a single episode of that playthrough, so I don't know how good those videos are gonna actually end up looking on YouTube. But for me, the game looked amazing, even though I had a few hiccups and technical difficulties. But I still am not sure exactly what happened. But anyway, it was a great experience playing through the game. Although I do gotta complain about a little bit about how short it is, because I really didn't realize how short this game actually is. I was under the impression that the game was, I mean, in my mind, I thought that I would get at least like maybe 8 episodes of Outlast alone, not even Outlast and Whistleblower. I thought I was gonna get like 8 episodes of Outlast alone, and maybe 4 more, essentially half of that for Outlast Whistleblower. And I think the reason why I thought like that is because almost all of the playthroughs that you see on YouTube are, because they are from like 10 years ago at this point, they are from a different time on YouTube when videos were shorter, so everybody has like 10 plus episodes of playing through Outlast. And all of them are like 20 to 30 minutes, which is still more if you put all the episodes into one. It's still much longer than what I did, but to be honest, for me, this replay of Outlast and Whistleblower was a replay. It wasn't a first time playthrough. So I obviously knew where to go and what to do and everything. So obviously there was a little bit of a speed up in the process. And I feel like I was also maybe slightly rushing it and trying to get through it as quick as possible. So that has also sped up how quickly I actually ended up playing through the game. I don't think it's going to take me as quick of a time playing through Outlast 2. Although again, I don't really have point of comparison for how long that game is, because I've only seen PewDiePie play that game, and that was like 5 years ago, so I really don't remember and don't really know how long it's going to turn out to be. Although I imagine, because it's obviously a more modern game, it's probably going to be longer. But yeah, it is weird how short Outlast is. It's barely 4 hours for me. I mean, Outlast, out of the playthrough, only 3 episodes of Outlast is what I ended up recording, and each of those episodes is like what, hour and a half. So we have hour and a half, 3 hours, and then another hour and a half. That's 4.5 hours for Outlast. And then for Whistleblower, we have one more 2 hour long episode. So all we know, both Outlast and Whistleblower are barely 6 hours. Compare that to my playthrough of Alien Isolation, which I know is of shitty quality, so I don't expect you guys to go and watch it. And I will be playing the DLCs to Alien Isolation at some point. I am aware of them. I think there's like 2 or something, unless I'm confusing that with State of Decay. I know there's at least one, but I'm interested in playing that DLC. So you'll get some playing from me on that with a higher quality. But compared to Alien Isolation, I got, I believe, 11 episodes out of that. And I know that back then I wasn't like specifically going for a certain amount of length for the videos. So some are longer than others, and there's definitely a bigger difference in the length of the episodes. But even then, it's like so much longer. So much so that at a certain point, as you're playing through Alien Isolation, it really feels like it's just forcefully extending the length of the game. Like you should have ended the game already, but it's kind of just filling it up with filler content. And it's actually really important to make a comparison between Outlast and Alien Isolation because they're very similar games. In both games, you are supposed to walk around and evade the enemy by hiding in lockers and just not being able to fight. Although in Alien Isolation, you get the ability to fight, so it's not completely the same. And I do want to say, once you get the weapons in Alien Isolation, it definitely becomes less stressful. Although, I also gotta point out that for me, that is also when I switched the difficulty of the game because of that. Because for the first, like, I think 3 or 4 episodes, I played on. I think it was medium. It wasn't even hard. I'm pretty sure I was just playing on medium, but it was stressing the fuck out of me. And then I lost the save file, so I had to download a save file from the internet. And I just downloaded it at easy difficulty. I don't remember whether it was specifically I was looking for an easy difficulty or that's the only one that I found, but that's what I did. So for the second half of the playthrough, at least, it was on easier difficulty. So that also might have lowered the amount of stress that I got playing through the game. But definitely my stress wasn't as high as it was for Alien Isolation. Although, for Outlast, it was a little bit more stressful compared to Whistleblower. I feel like Whistleblower was less stressful, mostly because I played Outlast during the night and I played all 3 episodes in one go, I believe. So obviously there was a lot of stress there because I didn't really give myself much of a breathing room. While with Whistleblower, I played it pretty much in one sitting with only a little bit of a break after the 1.5 hour mark because I was planning on doing 2 episodes of Whistleblower, but then it turned out that I had only like a half an hour of playtime left, so I ended up stitching it into one video. But yeah, that is kind of the biggest criticism I guess I have for Outlast, because I thought it was going to be much longer. Although I do also want to say how, like, I feel like there's definitely a little bit of a quality difference between Outlast and Whistleblower. In a way, I feel like Whistleblower, from game design, from level design standpoint, it does feel kind of more polished. Because, like, I don't know how to explain it exactly. The best way I can put it is that I feel like when you're playing through Outlast, it feels like it has aged. Like, it definitely feels like from an older generation of horror games, in a way. It's still good, it still looks good, it's still entertaining to play through, but I'm just saying that the level design is kinda more obvious, in a way. Because it wasn't that way for Alien Isolation. Like, for Alien Isolation, I feel like the atmosphere, the look, and everything worked so well. In Alien Isolation, I believe it was released, was it 2014? Give me a second to check. Yeah, it's a 2014 game, so it's only like a year older than Outlast, and yet it feels like it's from like not even a year ago. Like, it feels very modern, I feel like, both in look and in gameplay. It definitely feels more modern compared to Outlast. But also, Whistleblower feels much closer to Alien Isolation, although still not as fleshed out as Alien Isolation, at least in my opinion. Because, like, I feel like the level design, at least in that one, is not as obvious as for Outlast, and I can't really put it in other words other than that. It just, like, it feels like the levels in Outlast are much simpler. Like, the only level that is more fleshed out is the level with Traeger. And talking about Traeger, I guess I should talk a little bit about the villains in these games. I don't really have much to say. I feel like the scariest villain, in my opinion, is Chris Walker, the big guy, and it's mainly because he's pretty scary when he runs at you, you know, and he has a pretty powerful hit, and he's also like the most frequently used character in Outlast. So at least in terms of like gameplay stress and fearing doing certain things because of the character that is tracking you, he's pretty stressful. I wouldn't go necessarily as far as to say that he's as stressful as like the alien from Alien Isolation, but he's definitely closer to it than to the rest of the characters. Traeger is okay, but we don't really get him for that long to really be impacted by him that much. The Wall Rider, um, again, similarly to Traeger, I guess we do get him a little bit more, but he is not that much of a like. It doesn't really hurt you that much. He's only threatening as far as the fact that you can't really run away from him necessarily that easily. Like you can't really prevent him from following you like the other guys with like a door. That might slow him down a little bit, but not as much as the other guys again. Then there's the twins, who I used to think that they were pretty scary, but honestly, after seeing a bunch of other playthroughs and a review of Outlast, I realized how bad they are as a villain. So I'm not really that scared by them. I don't really care about them. And we don't really get them for that much either. Although I like that at least they one hit kill you, so there's that. Then there's the villains of Whistleblower, which, like the DLC itself, it feels like much more polished and interesting. Like Frank Manero with his chainsaw, he's pretty scary. I remember when I originally played the DLC Whistleblower, I was really scared of him, especially in his section where I didn't know where the fuck to go. Like he, just like Traeger, when I first played through it, it was so hard getting to the right place, and I was so afraid of walking around him. He was very, very dangerous and scary, in my opinion, and I honestly really liked him. Then there's the Groom, who is honestly pretty scary. Like, the way he kills and mutilates, like, it's pretty horrifying. He's definitely the most impactful villain in terms of the horrifying nature of the things that he does. Like, it's really, really horrifying. And the way that you're supposed to run away from him in a lot of his sequences, he's literally right up your ass as you're running away from him. So that is pretty scary, and he's a pretty impactful villain. Although it's a little weird the way he dies, it's still not really clear how he dies, but whatever. Then there's a bunch of miscellaneous villains here and there, like the guys that chase you before you go to Traeger. That chase is one of the best parts of the game, in my opinion. Although it's not as fun after you've played it a couple of times, in my opinion. Then there's the Dennis character, which I've actually underrated quite a lot, and I've realized how fun and interesting character he is, and how I wish they used him more. If you don't know who I'm talking about the guy you meet that chases you right before you go to the Groom, whose name I forget. Gluskin. It was Gluskin. He's really interesting to me because I realized after all this time that in that sequence where you're kind of going through the maze in the attic, it's not several people that are in the attic. It's all one guy with multiple personalities. And you even get to see him up close because he looks at you with one of his personalities and warns you about the guy down below. And that is so cool. Like, for a mental asylum, we surely didn't get much of a person with multiple personalities. You would think that they would actually use that more, you know? And yeah, for the story of Outlast, I kind of get the gist of it, but I feel like there is a really cool story, but I feel like the execution and the feeding that we get about the story is not really good enough, because the most I've actually learned about the story is from watching reviews about the game. Because pretty much all of the story about the game is in those documents that you gather as you're playing the game. But to be honest, a lot of the times those documents have a lot of big words that are boring and interesting and don't really tell you anything, doesn't really tell anything to the average person. So I really didn't bother looking for them or read them in my playthrough. But they do tell you a lot about the story and everything. But again, I feel like they didn't really do that good of a job of giving you the story, you the story in a way that is easily digestible. It really feels like you have to dig very hard to really get the story of the game. I mean, what you get in the experience of the game and the story of like this character getting into the asylum and surviving all these horrible things and everything, it's good enough. It's entertaining enough and everything. But the story and the lore behind it, I feel like it's not, in the world building, it's not really given to us in a satisfying manner. I also really want to point out how many little things I actually didn't realize about Outlast. Like in my wish to be done with the replay so I can get to playing through Outlast 2 for the first time, I really overlooked a lot of little details. Like there was a lot of things, hidden things that I didn't really realize were a thing until I watched a bunch of playthroughs on Outlast and Whistleblower. Like after I finished it, I watched Jacksepticeye's playthrough of Outlast and Markiplier's playthrough of Outlast, and in both of those, there were so many hidden moments and places that you could go that I didn't realize. And the one that sticks to my mind is, the part of Outlast where you're supposed to get 3 fuses. If you look in the corner on the right, you can see in the shadows a guy. And I'm pretty sure that's one of the guys that chases you later. And I didn't realize that. I feel like I've realized that he was there in previous playthroughs, but I didn't realize that in my most recent playthrough. And there's a lot of things like that in the playthroughs that I personally didn't even realize was a thing in mine. So that was kind of interesting to see in their playthroughs. But yeah, I think that's pretty much covering everything about Outlast. I definitely feel like I'll have more to say about Outlast after playing to Outlast 2, because I know there's some connection story-wise between Outlast and Outlast 2, obviously, and like the Murkoff Corporation is involved with the events of Outlast 2. But I really wish that, if it's not the case, I really wish that Outlast 2 was like it explored more of the consequences of the Wall Rider being released. Because if you didn't know, some of the consequences of the Wall Rider are the fact that he makes females pregnant somehow, or makes them think they're pregnant and make their bodies think they're pregnant, or something along those lines. And if I remember correctly, there was some kind of storyline in Outlast 2 that is kind of like that. So I'm curious if that is a consequence of the Wall Rider, whether we're actually going to learn that in the game, or whether the events of Outlast 2 are the consequence of Murkoff, but in some other different way. I don't know. But yeah, I really like the atmosphere of Outlast. I love the location, and it's so fun to play in that game. I really, really do enjoy the location. It's a great location. I feel like I love the location more than I love the location of Alien Isolation, although in both cases, both are great. I really, really like the location. And I really, really wish that at some point in the future, Outlast makes a game based in an old European town. because if you haven't watched any of my videos in which I've mentioned this, I've seen a little bit of the playthroughs for Resident Evil 8, The Village. And I haven't played through any other Resident Evil games or have seen any other Resident Evil games, although I do plan to play through all of them, except the first one. Unless it gets a remake before I start playing through those other games. But I saw like the first, I don't know, half an hour to an hour of a Resident Evil Village before you actually get to like get a gun and start shooting and everything. And I really enjoyed it. Those early, for like the first half an hour of the game, I loved it because it feels so much like an Outlast game. And the atmosphere and the location felt so relatable to me because I am from Europe, for those of you who don't know, and especially I'm from Eastern Europe and from a small town, so some of those locations and the little village that you have in Resident Evil feels very reminiscent of places that I've been in my country. So it felt like very close to home, and that amplified the horror of it. And I really wish Outlast, and like I said, I think that felt like a lot like an Outlast game, and I really wish that Outlast at some point gets a game like that. Although I know that Outlast 3 is not gonna be like that, so sadly, we're not gonna get that. But yeah, in terms of a rating for these games, I think I'm gonna give Outlast an 8 out of 10 and Whistleblower an 8.4 out of 10. I think that's a pretty accurate description of those. Although, I would say like both Outlast and Whistleblower have their strengths and weaknesses. I feel like Outlast stressed me out more, and I was more scared of doing things in it, especially because of the big guy, because he was very scary. And I was stressed about him catching me and everything. But like I said, the level design in Outlast felt a little bit too aged at this point compared to even Whistleblower, which I feel like felt a little bit more modern, even though they have barely a year difference, and it's not even a year, it's most like months. And it honestly, now that I think about it, it really feels like those two should just have been the one game. Like there was no reason why Whistleblower is a DLC, because it's the two sides of the same story essentially. We're using the same assets and everything, and it is essentially the complete journey. In the first game, you get deeper and deeper and deeper in the asylum, and in the DLC, you get further and further out of the asylum. So it's like the complete journey. But it is definitely a little bit more polished and thought out, I feel like. And there isn't this obvious feeling of like an aged level design in it, which is why I feel like it is better ultimately. But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think about those two games? Comment your thoughts down below and let's have a discussion about it. And also, before we end this video, I just want to give a huge shout out to my currently 3 patrons on Patreon: Omar Bridgman, Deadpool, and Sanchez. Thank you guys for your support. I really appreciate it. It really means a lot to me that you have decided to support me and have continued to support me such a long time. I hope you continue to enjoy my content and continue to support me going forward. Thank you very much. And now, before we end this video, I just want to talk about something to you guys very quickly, which some of you may or may have not noticed before or know about me, that being the fact that I am trans. And yes, this may come as shocking to some of you because I don't really flaunt it that much on my channel, or at least I feel like I don't. Outside of like my K-pop reactions, which is where I feel like the most comfortable being myself like this. And yeah, I am in fact trans. I'm not necessarily full-on male to female, but I heavily want to transition to being pretty female. I do consider myself more non-binary though, or maybe gender fluid would be the best descriptor as well, because I do have occasional moments where
I feel fine being like just a normal guy, but most of the time, like right now, I do feel very dysphoric. And that's why I'm asking you guys for any help that you can give me, because my situation right now, I don't really see any way outside of you guys' help. Because, and this is gonna be kept short and concise, I live with my parents. They're never going to accept me as a trans person. They just never will. And as a matter of fact, back when I started the YouTube channel, I was actually kind of slightly starting my transition back then, with like starting to grow out my hair. I even got to DIY HRT, but because my parents started noticing certain things, like my behavior had changed a lot and my clothes had changed a lot, I kind of had to stop doing that, because they were constantly nagging me about cutting my hair and just started to kind of be threatening in a certain way, and felt like they were ashamed of me, and everything. And that kind of stress just tired me out to the point where I just gave up. But as dysphoria goes, it just doesn't go away, you know. I still feel like this, and in fact, it's somewhat been intensifying again recently, so I just wanted to share this with you guys. And again, I would really appreciate any amount of support you can give me in regards to this, because I just don't see any way out of this. Because even if I moved out of my parents' house and got myself a job and everything, that's just not gonna work for long-term planning, because once I transition, it's like I probably will not be able to get myself a job, because my country is very transphobic. Nobody gives a shit about LGBT people at all. So there's not even much I can do, even in terms of transitioning here. So, yeah, I don't know. I just would appreciate any amount of support you can give me, be it monetarily or in any way otherwise. And this is not about boosting my channel or anything, or guilt-tripping you with my sob story. I just wanted to get this off my chest and make my subscribers aware of the situation that I am in, and that I would appreciate anything that you guys can help me out with. It would mean literally everything. Like, for example, a friend that I made after starting this YouTube channel, my good friend Yuri, has been helping me out a lot. And I genuinely might have not been here if it wasn't for him showing up and befriending me. So yeah, this just went a little bit longer than I intended, but I would just really appreciate anything you can support me with. That's kind of ultimately what I'm trying to say.
And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe. Also, check out the description to my Twitter if you want to follow me over there, and to my Wattpad where I post my stories, because in addition to doing all these videos on my channel, I'm also a writer. And if you end up enjoying my stories or simply enjoy my videos, you can head over to my Patreon or to my Coffee account, where you can pledge your support and help get the channel going, help support me so I can keep writing stories you enjoy. But if you don't want to do it, that's completely fine. You can help me out in other ways, like liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and especially sharing this video with somebody who you think might enjoy it. And I think this is pretty much it for this video, so hopefully I'm gonna see you in the next one. Bye!